I'm Aaron Sagers, and this is Talking Strange. Hey there, spooky nerds, and welcome to Talking Strange, a paranormal pop culture show with a den of geek network. As always, I'm your host, journalist, author, researcher of weird things, Aaron Sagers, and you can also catch me on 28 Days Haunted on Netflix and Paranormal Caught on Camera on Travel Channel and the Max streaming service and Discovery Plus. And my guest today as the directing team of Kailey Spear and Sam Spear, aka the Spear Sisters. And the Spear Sisters have previously directed the short film Or, which is set in the Alien universe, which was as part of the Alien franchise's 40th anniversary. They also directed 3 episodes of the CW's 2-sentence horror stories and the Mary Alice Brandon File, based on stories from Stephenie Meyer's The Twilight Saga, the official illustrated guide. And that was the winner of the Storytellers New Voices of the Twilight Saga competition. Now they have entered the world of Creepshow, and we just had Greg Nicotero on here last episode, and they're directing 2 stories in the 4th season of Creepshow. It's the 2nd episode of the season, and their 2 stories are The Hat and Grieving Process, available now on Shudder and premiering on AMC Linear on Friday, October 20th. Okay, with all that out of the way, let's actually talk to them. Sam and Kailey Spear. Hi, how are you?
Hello. Thanks so much for having us. This is awesome.
Thank you. I'm happy to be talking to you. And like I said, I'm trying to, as twin sisters, I'm trying to keep you kind of in my mind as Sam is on the left and then Kailey's on the right. Okay, we got that down. Before we get into this episode of Creepshow, and the dog.
And that's Moat, who just woke up.
Who is it?
Moat.
I like it.
Yeah.
And he looks. Moat is a boy.
Yeah.
Moat looks a little
after a fairy in Midsummer Night's Dream.
Yes, yeah, and he's very adorable. He looks a little cold. Is he a shivering little guy?
He's tired.
Yeah. Well, I always like it when pets join in on the show. So mine is around somewhere napping. But I wanted to talk a little bit about where you guys grew up to begin with. You Bowen Island in British Columbia, in a town called, I'm not going to try to pronounce it. You help me along with this. Next.
Lelehuim.
One more time.
Lelehuim. But known as Bowen Island as well.
Mm-hmm. So
okay.
The kind of 2 names for the island. One town on a small island.
What was the vibe of that island? Like how did your upbringing there kind of form you into the storytellers you are now? And specifically, maybe were the horror seeds planted on Bowen Island for you?
Yeah, well, Bowen was such an amazing place to grow up in. It's a community. When we were growing up, there were like 3,000 people there, very small, but lots of artists. We did theater school when we were super young, starting in grade 2, I think.
Yeah, and that was a huge influence for us. That theater school is called Tiernanog Theater School, and we started there when we were quite young, and that was really where our love of storytelling was built. Before that, we loved stories, we loved movies, but that was where we kind of really first got in and started being a part of crafting them and seeing that process. So that was huge. And it was also a place where, small island, and when things have to get done, people, you see, like, we grew up seeing people rally together and get things done that they wanted to get done. And same with our dad actually started a middle school on island. So we also saw him build a school, create a school there. And so just growing up, seeing people rally to create the things that they want was also hugely influential with us going into film and kind of believing or understanding that if we want to get something made, we could make it happen. Yeah.
Did you said Tiernanog was the name of the school that you went to? So is there a large Irish influence on the island, or?
You know what? There's quite a British Isle, Ireland. Lots of people have traveled over from there and then landed on Bowen.
I know, it's funny. People sometimes say that people in Bowen have like a little bit of an accent. Like we often get like, "Oh, where are you from?" Canada, Bowen Island. But I think it might be a little bit of that sometimes leaches into some people's speech, which is fun.
Was it? It's interesting when you talk about an island and also something that has a bit of that British influence and is, it just can have that mystical, magical air about it. Was that something that was sort of present on the island?
Yeah, it was very much like a place of fostering imagination. We would always play in the woods, have big elaborate games with our friends, building forts or, playing that we're lost or lots of those types of imaginary games. And then that just kind of folded right into our theater and then growing up and then getting into film. But having that root there for sure.
Very much growing up in a place where we were kind of building stories and that's kind of how we spent our time in the woods, in the woods and by the ocean and kind of hearing these stories and then bringing them out into our games. It was very much like a place of sort of wonder where you could we always loved fairy stories when we were young. And so going out and playing in the woods, it's like a place where you could imagine that there's fairies or that there's like sea creatures. And
there's also a lot of horror shot there.
There's a lot of horror shot.
Funny with that, that isolated quality, I think is attractive to people shooting horror films. We've never shot a horror there. One day in the future, hopefully, but the remake of The Fog, the remake of The Wicker Man, Harper's Island. What was The Fog? We remember we were in high school or middle school when that was getting shot. And we heard that they were going to do this big stunt with somebody on fire. And we're like, we have to see that
through the graveyard.
So we got the intel of when it was going to be shot. And of course it was 4 a.m. in the middle of pouring rain. We're like, we're going to go watch that.
So our mom brought us at 4 a.m. and it was pouring rain. We stood on these docks that were across from where they had set up this graveyard scene to watch this, the guy being set on fire and yanked across the graveyard. So
that's
also influential.
That's so cool. And also kudos to your mother for supporting the fandom and the creative spark that you guys had. Was there any creepy legends, urban legends, sort of the house at the end of the block that was said to be haunted, anything like that? You mentioned some fairy stories, anything like that?
Not that I can think of. You'd think there would be.
I know. Yeah. I guess it was more, I know that in our own games, kind of with some of our friends, we were always on the lookout for red cap fairies, which are the bad ones. And the ones where you see where you don't see them, you just see their shadow.
Yeah.
So those were the kinds of things that were kicking around in our brains.
Okay.
But yeah, local legend.
There's got to be some cool ones to uncover up there. And maybe the topic for a future movie or story that you guys tell. I kind of shifting to just sort of the horror landscape at large. How have you found it? How is the horror landscape for women? And do you think it's actually a better genre to navigate for female storytellers as opposed to some of the other kind of genre out there?
I mean, I feel like it's a great place for female storytellers, for storytellers. And I definitely do see that that it is growing, the voices of female in horror have expanded a lot, and we're seeing a lot more stuff, which is really cool. And
storytelling in general. I think having different perspectives come to stories just always enhances the landscape. So we're happy to be part of it.
Yeah.
Are you actively seeking out horror, or has it just sort of been what people are kind of most associating with you as of late?
Yeah, you know what? It's funny that we landed in horror because when we were kids, we were super scared of everything. our parents were like a little worried about us. We were like, just afraid of snow. We were afraid of being afraid. So we wouldn't watch horror movies because we were going to be afraid. So when we started, when we knew that we wanted to be filmmakers, we're like, we want to do everything, but horror, I don't think is us. But the more that we've gotten into film and the more we've explored the genre, we found that we really, really loved it. We loved the craft of it, and the way it can really tell like the inner story of what a character is going through. So you really get to like, if they're going through something dark or something scary, you can really use the tools of the genre to bring that out in a more elevated way.
Yeah, it's a very visceral genre, which is really fun. A very, very craft based, which is really fun to use. Again, like very much using the tools of cinema to kind of to help you understand what's going on internally with these characters. And that's something that we love doing. And so something that like, that we have kind of more, it's like fallen into, but then also embraced and love and are gonna kind of use moving forward.
Do you think having grown up being afraid of everything, being afraid of being afraid, that does a little bit of that still linger in you that you can tap into as far as scaring other people? Like, this is what scares me. I can go to that place and now I'm going to use it to scare others.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah.
Absolutely. And then also because we were so aware of kind of being afraid of being afraid, we watched everything really closely. And so all of those little things, like the things that horror films do, we were always watching and picking up on that, kind of watching their moves.
Yeah. So when you're working together, what would you say is the balance as far as what is that working dynamic like? And what is one another's strengths? If you're going to speak to one another's strengths that you lean on, share that as well. So what's the dynamic, what's the balance, and what are each of your strengths?
You know what? It's actually very ebb and flow. Sometimes we wish that one of us was like really good at something and one of us was really good and we could just split the work like that, but it's definitely our strengths are the same. So we really go back and forth.
But then that's also kind of being like turned out to be a strength of ours, is that we are very similar. We have the same strengths, so we can do this ebb and flow thing where we pass things back and forth. And like on set, one of us will be kind of like sent to go give notes to the actors and talk to them. The other person will at the same time be talking to the DP, and then we switch the next scene. And it's a very seamless ebb and flow kind of thing that we do, and where we can both trust each other to kind of man whatever things we need to do.
Yeah. And anybody can ask either of us the questions. They don't need to seek one out or the other, because by the time we step on set, we both know exactly what our vision is and we trust each other.
Yeah, we've more recently kind of discovered how fortunate we are that we do go into things with the same vision. It's something that we kind of took for granted earlier on because we didn't really notice how unique that was, that we are so much on the same page with the kinds of things that we want to do and what we want to see, or even like how we want to approach a scene, or a look to things. We will jump into something with kind of the same vision for what we want, which is very helpful.
I mean, I don't know do you have twin superpowers? Like, is there a psychic connection?
Let's say we do.
We got them all.
Yeah.
Each other's minds.
I mean, that seems like that connection, that telepathic level of connection between one another can be coming quite handy when you're directing stories. I would assume.
We do have we do know each other well. Again, we have the same vision and things. So there will be moments like on set where we'll just know, like if we have a note for something, sometimes we'll both just know what it is without having to talk to each other or even saying like, oh, do we want to do that? It'll just be more like we'll see something and we'll kind of look to each other and the look will be like, okay, who's going to go give the note? And we both know without saying like what the note is.
Yeah. So it's just kind of like, no, okay, you go. You go.
And, I just wanted to ask a little bit about the Alien Ore in particular was a short film that I really enjoyed. And it was incredible that you got to play in this sort of franchise sandbox. Is that something else that you want to do more of? Would you like to tell an installment within another franchise, or are you looking more to kind of telling your own stories not connected to any IP?
You know what? We love both.
Both, yeah.
We love doing we have so many of our own ideas and we're working on our own stuff, but we also love working with other stories.
We
like
really
with those,
do, yeah.
Twilight and Alien, it was so much fun to be able to jump into another world and be able to explore those characters and those worlds. We have so much fun with that.
Yeah, even like hopping into Creepshow too. Yeah, like Creepshow, Alien, Twilight, like they're all very different in their own kind of tones and worlds. But it's something that like it's something that we do love doing, is kind of seeing a world that is built and identifying kind of what that is that's going on, and then hopping into it and then doing kind of staying within that, like that sandbox, but then building something within it is something that we really love doing. So we would love to hop into other franchises. It's very exciting to us.
Yeah, Creepshow is a bit of a interesting spot to be in right now, because obviously it's this established name, but all the stories, they're individual. It's an anthology series. So initially, how did you get connected with Creepshow to do this episode?
Yeah,
through Greg.
So our managers connected us to Greg, and Greg had actually seen Alien, which was awesome, and so we were able to chat, and yeah. And that's how that came about.
Well, what was that initial conversation like? It was just like, hey, how are you? Liked Alien, or here's a script, or what? Bring me down this journey.
At that point,
they were looking for directors.
Yeah, I think that they were interviewing directors. And so it was like a director interview type of situation. And then we talked a lot about Alien.
I mean, typically with Creepshow, the directors come on and they'll do one story for the episode, but you have both of these stories.
Yeah, which is so fun.
Yeah, I mean, how did that particularly come about? I mean, was Greg like, well, you're twin sisters, you're a directing team, you get two stories in the episode. I mean, how did that part emerge?
Yeah, well, I think that just worked out because the two stories that we had balance each other nicely. So they're quite different. The Hat has more of that wacky comedy, and Grieving Process is more dark. We injected more noir into that one. And so the balance of the two feels good together because they both have something different.
Yeah, it's and the episode, it's just to read the quick synopsis of it, is a horror novelist agent offers him help overcoming his writer's block, and the struggling author can't resist. That's the Hat. Then Richard's wife is attacked and becomes a shell of a woman he loved. He'll do anything to help her feel better. That's a very vague description of both the Hat and Grieving Process. But yeah, as you mentioned, it's two very different types of stories. You have one that is this very like, both have like great monster effects and creature effects, but one is more straight up comedy and one is more dark horror, satire, noir. Which did you find yourselves connecting with more readily?
Originally, probably Grieving Process was the one that Greg first talked to us about, which intrigued us immediately. Especially the part about like how, I don't know how much to give away here, but
well, it is already streaming on Shudder, and it'll be coming on AMC. So I think you can walk us through it without spoiling the ending. How about that?
Yeah. So there's this attack, and we were really intrigued at coming at it through the perspective of the carer. So even though the husband wasn't attacked, he too becomes a monster in his own way. By effect of being involved in this attack. So we thought that was an interesting perspective to take in that story.
Yeah. And I mean, I don't think it's really spoiling too much to say that basically his wife gets attacked, and then she morphs into something that is a bit of a man eater, a human eater, a flesh eater, and it gets pretty ghoulish in there. It's also interesting because I can't quite place it. I watched the episode this morning. I can't quite place if it has some sort of origin in lore or myth. Was there any discussion with the writers about sort of background of Grieving Process and the monster in that?
It's actually its own monster. It's kind of a combination of the vampire zombie creature, but it's its own thing for Grieving Process.
What do you call it?
What did we call it? We called it the monster.
Oh, okay. I didn't know if there was
so it didn't actually have a specific thing that that we know, at least, that was tied to any lore. So when we were going in, it was very much kind of creating this new mysterious thing that sort of we're kind of like figuring out the new rules for how it worked.
What were some of the rules that you were kind of figuring out about this new creature?
Yeah, well, like something, because early we're like it was eating blood, so you immediately think vampire, but no, it's not a vampire because it's also eating the like flesh. So it's kind of zombie-ish, but it almost has that sort of vampiristic kind of transition. So that had kind of like different stages to descending into this creature thing, starting from her original place and then falling deeper into it. And especially like after she started eating people, that's like when this kind of like monstery thing like really started to take a hold.
So we had phases of transition. So the first time she's just eating, and then you see that flash of her face change. And then later on, her face gets even more changed as she's going into that eating creature monster. And then with her personality of she becomes more of a creature, but then we have the little girl who's a lot older of a creature, and she's more in control of her humanoid self while being the monster.
Yeah. Was
That's
this
really
the
cool.
It is. It's a fun. I mean, for a half an hour segment, we get like a meaty story, and it's also, we've got some good kind of gross out effects with this. Is that the most that you shot thus far, as far as like really kind of those visceral effects, that kind of gore element?
Yeah, that's the most blood we've had. Yeah, spraying blood on the floor, blood on the walls.
How was the experience for you?
The stunt people,
Was it fun?
It was fun. It was fun. Sticky, but fun.
I mean, was that something where you were talking to, because obviously I know Greg is an executive producer on the show, but he's also, I think while this was filming, he was in Paris filming the Daryl Dixon, or in France filming a lot of the Daryl Dixon, right? Show. So
he wasn't quite ready for that yet, but
he was with us for a bit of it. Yeah. But then he was going back and forth between some things. I think he was getting ready to go to Paris. So we were very lucky to have him with us for part of it. Yeah. So had great talks with kind of like how we wanted to approach that, which was great. He's great.
Yeah. Whereas with the hat, you had this kind of comedic approach. Is that the most kind of comedy that you've done so far?
The crush was more wacky. The hat was more comedy. So when we read the hat, we were like so excited because we hadn't been able to stretch in that comedy zone.
Yeah. It was, So Grieving Process was that one that we heard of first, and that we kind of got this heart that we really attached to. But then once we got the hat sent to us, it was like this immediate, we were so excited. It had this, the way that it was written, it just kind of seemed to have this kind of pace and this clip to it that we thought, like it could have gone kind of a couple, like a few different ways, as you can always approach different scripts. But that one, it was something that was in the writing. It had this kind of pop to it where we're like, we need to bring the comedy to this.
Yeah, and like the quirk.
It has this, it has this kind of zip to it.
Yeah.
That we really wanted to bring.
Yeah.
That was a really exciting thing for us to be like, oh, we can bring comedy to this. We haven't really been able to do that.
Well, and the thing I love about Creepshow is that even though we always have like that twist at the end of the stories, the setup is, you could pretty much see where a lot of the stories are kind of going, even though there then is a bit of a twist. So with The Hat, this struggling writer, he's put out one book, he's trying to work on another one, and he acquires this hat that once belonged to a famous author that's very similarly named to Stephen King, and then it kind of consumes him, I guess. Was that a story? I mean, as creators and storytellers yourself, was there something kind of relevant for that story for you that you connected to about, great, we've done one thing and now we need to do it again and we feel like we got nothing in the tank?
Oh, yeah, very relatable.
Who doesn't want a hat?
Yeah, staring at the blank page. And you're like, come on, we can do this. We can do this. Where is it? I know you can. I know it's in there. And
you just need to bust it out.
If I just had that thing that like could kind of help get all the words on the page really quickly, would love. I mean, I don't love what, this little hat does to you, but man, would like some of those superpowers.
I mean, I kind of wonder with the hat, like, how bad is it going to get? I mean, I guess we see with the other author, it's not so great for him, but was that because he stopped wearing the hat, or was that what the hat did to him? I mean, you tell me. We see this kind of shriveled up, the original owner of the hat. Things aren't looking so hot for him. I don't know what the magic is of the hat, or maybe it's withdrawal that made the guy all
he's definitely suffering through it. He's got his hair falling out.
Yeah. And we do feel like it's like it is one of those things where you kind of get this like little shortcut and it seems great, but is it really his like work, or is it this alien, and then he's taking credit for it, right? Where he's like, great, I've got all this good stuff, but
is it a brilliant little alien in there?
Yeah, who's getting his theory out, and he's getting all of his little things there. Yeah, so
really, the alien just needs to find its own agent, and it can work on its own. Do you guys have any? I mean, also this element to it is, I think, something relatable for not just writers or creators, but athletes across the board, people that have that talisman, that good luck charm or whatever. Is there anything like that you have, any rituals or charms or anything that you kind of take to work with you, the thing you keep in your pocket or whatever it might be?
We haven't found. We actually in the backs of our phones, we store a bunch of 4-leaf clovers because we find 4-leaf clovers a lot. And so those come with us.
Oh.
Just because we find them all the time. I should keep them.
Yeah. So those kind of get carried around. Oh, our dog's just coughing.
It's okay. Hope the dog's okay. I hope little Moat's okay. But okay, how are you discovering so many 4-leaf clovers?
People always ask that too, because we find 4-leaf clovers quite a bit, and our friends ask, like, how are you always finding these? We're just walking along, it's like, oh, there's one. But I think it's we just kind of trained our eye. Like we are, I guess, perceptive folks. So we are always kind of looking into things in our surroundings and taking in details, but have also walking across Bowen Island quite a few times. Just kind of trained ourselves to like look at the ground and look for them. And there's usually a few in a patch of, if you're walking along, every once in a while, you'll find a 4-leaf clover. So you just gotta
attention to detail.
Yeah, attention to
which
detail.
Helps us in our careers.
Right.
That's how we've recently found that we have a little bit more of that than we thought we did.
I think so. Well, yeah, I mean, I hope it is contributing to, whatever luck is, I hope it's contributing to good fortune for you, having all those 4-leaf clovers. But I guess just kind of wrapping up, this Creepshow episode, I was thinking, like, it's a great resume piece because people can walk away from it having seen these two different kind of strengths that you're showing off as far as storytellers, as far as directors on that. I mean, what would you like people to take away about you, about your skills out of this episode of two stories?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, I would love, I guess, people to realize we're not a one-trick pony. We love jumping into different tones, different genres, and kind of playing within those. So, when people are thinking of us for something, you can kind of think outside the box of what you might think that we would be drawn to, or that are that we would, be a good fit for, because we do really love many, many different things. Yeah.
You want to add to that?
Yeah, I think she got it. We love many, many genres, and it's really exciting working with other people's scripts, and then taking the strengths of like an IP like Creepshow or Alien and really looking at what that thing does well and embracing that and bringing what our own strengths are to it to make something new.
Kailey, is there a film that your sister is really into that you are not into? And Sam, I'm going to ask you the same question, but Kailey, why don't you start?
No.
No?
I know we like the same films.
Yeah.
I was hoping to stir up some sort of conflict here.
I
know. We're very much on the same page
with our film tastes.
Yeah.
I know.
What are you into right now then? What are you digging as far as?
We just last night started watching Fall of House of Usher,
which we would have watched all, like as soon as it came out, but we are watching it with a friend, so we have to wait for him to watch it.
Yeah.
So it was like the first night where we finally were able to get together and we're like, we're doing this, we're starting it. We still have to finish it, but God, love Mike Flanagan stuff.
Yeah, I've not started it yet because it, I think, dropped at the beginning of New York Comic Con, which was absorbing my entire life this past weekend. So haven't even gotten to watch it yet, but it is definitely on my list, and I do love Flanagan. And Mike Flanagan's brother directed or wrote the episode that kicks off the Creepshow season.
Wrote the first one.
Yeah. Wonderful episode.
And finally, just what's next for you guys? What are you working on? What do you want to work on?
Yeah, well, we're working on our own stuff. We're actually looking into the fantasy realm with one of our projects, and then another
horror one. Actually, a couple horror ones that were three horror ones that we're developing,
and a sci-fi.
Two horrors, one thriller sci-fi, and then this fantasy one, which is one that's a world that we've been creating for a long time. I'm kind of have multiple little snort from our dog, multiple stories within it. But so we're beginning to build that out, which we're really excited about.
You're going to writing it and directing it?
That's the hope. We'll see where it goes, but that's the dream.
All right, then. Well, my guests are directors, the Spear Sisters, and we've got Kailey and Sam, and their episode of Creepshow, including the stories The Hat and Grieving Process, is available now on Shudder and will debut on AMC Linear on October 20th. And I appreciate your guys' time today. It was a delight talking with you, and I'm very excited to see what you have up next. So thanks so much for your time today.
Well, thank you. It was lovely meeting you.
Yeah. And I am Aaron Sagers, and that's it for me and for this episode of Talking Strange. Until next time, be kind, stay spooky, and keep it weird.